Thank you for tuning into the Scaling Up Business Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Edelman, here with C.A. Green, video producer. Welcome.
Hey, Eric. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, great to see you. So you're a video producer. Tell us what that means and who you work with and how you serve them.
Sure. Yeah. I feel like these days video producer kind of gets thrown around a lot of times. Like people think like, oh, that means like you're producing the thing yourself. Like in production in different businesses, it means you're like making the thing, shipping it, packing it, etc. So in a different scale of videos, the producer is the kind of the architect of what's going on. So they're going to have, they're going to work with the client in terms of what they want for vision. They're going to organize the whole team. They're going to make sure that managerial things, administrative, we're talking locations, meals, like transportation, all the like nitty gritty details that go into getting a crew of people to a location and making sure anything that could go wrong, they are thinking about what that is. That's kind of what I do. I like to think of myself as a, creative problem solver and a one-man fire extinguisher, if you will.
Right.
I had a short little story about that. I had a music video recently and somebody called me like 3 days before they were going to shoot, and the other producer had dropped out, and they were coming with like, hey, we need to get permits, or we need to figure out where we're shooting things, or we need locations, like all these things that really you'd want a lot more time to have to work on it. And I kind of came in and just established, okay, everything's going to be good. And that doesn't mean like sticking your head in the sand and ignoring problems, but that means like looking at the problems, not so much as being they're going to defeat you, but more like, how can I creatively solve this? Like, how can I figure out, not that this is a stumbling block, but it's, a step towards something different that I didn't anticipate or expect. So I think that, that obviously kind of problem solving skill could be applied to like a ton of different businesses and business models and industries. And then for me personally, I just have such a love for telling stories visually, like working on set, working with people in this medium. Like that's just what I've been gravitated towards it since I was a kid.
That's awesome. And I know that like whenever I've had videos for businesses that I've been involved with that were produced by somebody who was a professional, and I've also tried to do it myself or have somebody on my team just who didn't have any particular experience in it, like throw it together. And it's a world of a difference when you're working with somebody who actually is like paid to think through the details and think through all of the things that are going to go wrong. It's not the same. Yes, you could throw it together yourself, but it's a different experience and it's a different product at the end of the day, working with somebody who this is all they do.
Yeah, 100%. I think we see that, in every industry, like you said. I think even with yourself as a coach, you can get somebody who's like, oh, maybe I'm trying it on the side, or like I've never built a business before, but I can try to lead people. Like you see a difference of people who like, this is all they, eat, sleep, and breathe. Like this is their life. And that comes through the work. I think we see that with products that we buy, things that are, cheaper. Maybe it gets the job done, but is it the most effective? Is it the most efficient? Like, is it, a seamless experience? And I think it, as simple as the adage is, you just really get what you pay for. And a lot of times, my conversations with people are, I try to encourage people to just take one step closer to making a video. And sometimes that means not hiring me. Sometimes that means just taking your phone and, like you said, like filming stuff yourself or getting someone on your team to do it. And I think that the biggest thing that I would, hope people would take away is that don't let the big budgets professionals like scare you from just starting. I think that obviously that's where everybody wants to go. And obviously I would love people to, work with me and hire me and things like that. But at the same time, I know the value of people just doing it themselves and bootstrapping the video that they can, and whatever level they're at, like whatever they do, it's going to be a learning experience. And that's what, if we just, let me take a step back. If we look at incorporating video as like a longer game, then it's not just about getting like a super professional 30-second to 5-minute piece, but it's more like, what are you going to learn about your audience by incorporating the video? Like, what are you going to learn about yourself? Or maybe you're not a great public speaker. Maybe you feel nervous about being on camera. And just the more times you kind of get those reps in, the better you'll get at these things. And I think that, every business needs video, obviously. And the only way to really do that is just to start and just, pick up the phone, get a cheap camera, even, whatever it is. And then you can slowly get to that other place where you want to put more into it and really come up with like a complete video strategy.
Right. And I mean, what are the options for how somebody can use video in their business? Like, I feel like I don't even know, I'm really asking this question for myself. I don't know the breadth and depth of how you can use video. And there are probably things that I'm not thinking of and that some people in our audience are not thinking of. So what are some cool projects that are options that are not necessarily intuitive?
Sure. Yeah. It's funny because I guess I'm probably in like my own sort of echo chamber while everybody's talking about like all those things. So maybe other people don't know it, but you've got like really, really basic things that maybe are too obvious to even think about, but people love to connect with other people. So if you just show them like, this is me, Eric, working on my business, and this is the struggle that I had today, or this is the win that I had today. And you just take your phone and just do a selfie video explaining that, and you throw it into some free app or whatever. So there's a bunch of AI tools that people can use, and just throw some subtitles in there, captions, that's really going to do it. And you just talk about your experience and what you learned, and just have in mind, if I was talking to somebody maybe a year or 3 years behind me, what would I tell them? Like, what do I know that I wish I would have known that I could tell someone, and share that. That's like, kind of the founder struggle story, right? Like, you have the person who's owning the business and they're telling you about their struggles, and maybe they're winning, maybe they're losing sometimes, but what video is doing is creating that trust that is really what we need with businesses online, or other people that if we go to a networking space, they say, oh, I know you. Like, that's what you want. You want to walk into a place where maybe people have seen your stuff and they feel like they know you, and that's going to give you an upper hand on other things. So there's that kind of behind the scenes founder struggles. There would be showing people that you're working with, even if it's just, again, like really raw and authentic things about, this is what we're working on, this is what we're doing. And then having in mind like certain very easy filming like methods in order to do that. Like, very basic one is like, if you have a window in the room, like use that as your natural light and position it at 45 degrees away from you, so you don't want it to be shining completely on you. And I know that kind of sounds like boring and technical, but like, if you just know little basic things, it'll make like what you're doing that much better. And
right. Set it up and take your shot. These are not expert level things that you need to spend a lot of time and money on, but they'll make a big difference.
Right. And then once you start, doing more things, like you said, like the breadth and depth of it is, so you have this kind of like raw, like more social media style video that anyone can really do. And then your options start turning into, I would say, like a brand film, where instead of it's just like, the what we're doing, but what makes great characters is why they do it, right? Like, that's like crucial to really great stories, is the why. And so at that point, that's like, if you think about an inverted pyramid, like, you've got the biggest section where it's just you're throwing everything out, you're doing, trending things that are on Instagram or whatever, and you're just trying a bunch of stuff. But then the middle part of that pyramid is a little bit like more trust has been gotten from people at that point. So then you can kind of open up and give a little bit more time. So your goal at that point wouldn't be 15, 30, 60-second spots. It could potentially be, 1 to 3 minutes, like talking a little bit more about like who you are, why you're in this business. I think the biggest thing to realize about the content that you're speaking about is, in my opinion, as a producer, nobody cares about like the fancy gadget that you're trying to sell, or like how, like the features and like all those things. They want to know like really simple things, like what problem do they have that you're trying to solve, and why do you want to do that? Like, why do you want to be a coach and see other people succeed is more, in my opinion, more impactful than the people you have help succeed just because you want to help them get rich or something, or to like have a successful business. Like, I can't imagine that's why you're a business coach, like right. you want to create a community of people who are having success in their business, in their personal lives, and just living a more fulfilled life. Now, once you start uncovering that is where the gold of video really shines, because you could write about that. You could write blogs, you write a book, you could write, feature spots in other people's blogs. But once you start talking about that, I mean, that's where emotion is. That's where people are really affected. That's where people are really touched. And that's where people really connect. And then, you're not, a business owner isn't selling anything at that point. You're just creating an environment and a relationship with people, which in my mind is once you have that, then it's like obvious, like, well, does this thing that I'm working on, does it work for you? If so, then you have a sale. But it's not like you're trying to force this, product down someone's throat because it's like so fresh and so new and so cool. Like no one cares about that.
Right. They care about you, and they care about your story and your why, and all of that is part of the picture of why it doesn't matter what business you're in. That's why somebody is usually going to say, okay, I want to raise my hand and talk to this person. Maybe they can help me. You have to follow through and have a great product or service to deliver to them. But at the end of the day, in terms of getting them interested in working with you, video is a great method and a really powerful tool to do that.
Yeah, 100%. Can I share a little bit of the personal story and then an experience?
Yeah, I'd love to hear, because I think that's, like you said, we only have a minute or two left. But the main reason that video is such a powerful medium is when somebody walks into a room and meets you, they feel like they already know you a little bit, much more so than if they read something you wrote or just saw your name on a listing or something. So what drives you, and how did you start doing this?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, like been into film and movies and TV since I was a kid, as a, eating up the creative. And then once I learned about all the work that goes into it, I saw like, oh, I love this idea of just setting up every single aspect about this. And really it stemmed from like an idea of control at first. And as like a secular kid growing up, being into movies, like it was just like really cool. It was a very like Hollywood thing to be. And as I got older, I found myself like looking more and more for meaning in my life, and like really feeling like I didn't have community. I didn't have like a place of belonging. I was always trying to fit into different subcultures. And when I started working in the industry, I worked on some Netflix shows and some movies in New York when I was there for about 2 years. And I just saw that like I thought that would answer a lot of those questions that I had for like kind of belonging and community, like I said, and it really wasn't really cutthroat. Like it wasn't like a fun, thriving environment that I wanted to be in. And so when I became Fromm in 2016, by having like a crazy spiritual experience, which is a story for another time, I saw like, oh, there's this thing, this kind of like universal feeling of a desire to fit in, a desire to have community, a desire to like, really just have people, like there are people that have my back. And now how do I bridge what I found kind of like within, let's say, Orthodox Judaism? How do I bridge that with my love of telling stories visually, of making videos and stuff like that? And I'm noticing now that the connection is actually not that hard to find. Like it's a very small gap. A lot of business owners that I talk to, they start off with, like I said, their features and like what their app can do and what their product can do. And the more I kind of open them up to figure out like the what, the step 2 is like, okay, let's get down to like, what is your thing accomplishing? And I noticed that it's almost always about community. It's almost always about finding an audience. It's almost always about trust. And those things I find like very much overlap with who I am as a person. And that's what I try to bring to the projects. And I think that's what makes my projects feel a little bit more emotionally impactful and resonate with more people.
That's awesome. Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing these tips. Thank you so much for sharing your story. If somebody wants to reach you real quick in 10 seconds, how can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm most active on LinkedIn. If you just search C.A. Green, I'm friends with Eric as well, connections there. So you could just look at his network. That's where I am most active.
Can't miss the beard.
Yeah.
Love it. All right, great. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Eric.